All right, chapter 43, Mom's Story. Ooh, what? Harry's mom is going to tell her story, right? And what is this story about, remember? Troy? No. I want to know, like, remember, he's asking people their stories at Blue River, right? And he's saying, how did you get here? What happened that you got here? And he has always wanted to know what happened that his mom ended up at Blue River, right? And she's never wanted to tell him because it's hard to share the bad parts with people sometimes, right? Especially people you love. You want them to think of you as just really good people. And sometimes, it's hard for you to share the bad parts of yourself, right? If you do something that wasn't good, you don't want to brag about that or share that around you. Amy, excuse me, you are not being very polite. Show me that you can be respectful to those of us who are trying to listen to this story by putting bubble in your mouth. I can wait for second graders to behave themselves. Okay, now it's bad. All right, so we are going to tell, and remember, Thomas Van Leer, Mr. Van Leer had just said he was going to cancel his Saturday visit for Perry. They decided that he could go on the bookmobile on Tuesday and Friday, but then he was going to cancel the Saturday visit, which is a real bummer to Perry because that's important for him, right? On Saturday, Mrs. Samuels comes to the rescue, and so does Zoe. The three of us load into the SUV and drive out to Zoe's dance studio so she can attend an earlier class. Afterwards, we stop for egg and cheese biscuits at the farmer's market to eat on the way to Surprise. Zoe's mom grabs a head of broccoli, too. I think she saw me looking at it. I thank her at least 6 times for this trip to Blue River. She says, "This is fine, Perry. Truly, I promise that Zoe and I will not crowd you on this visit, but I'd like to meet your mom." They have brought books in a tote bag, things to do. When we get to Blue River, nobody has to make Zoe's mom play cards. You're not supposed to curl up or put feet on the chairs in the common. They're not that comfortable anyway. But Mom sort of does a half curl. She gets one knee up where she can hug it. It's her favorite way to sit, and usually no one calls her out on it. So, Mom, can you give me a Blue River mini bio on yourself before we get to your story? I've decided to take a short video, the first part of each interview, as long as it's okay with each res. She looks at the camera. Well, I'm Jessica Cook. I arrived here 12 years ago. I had just turned 18 at the time. So I've spent my 20s here. She dips her chin before going on. Currently, I counsel other residents throughout their stays here, all in preparation for release. That's kind of ironic since I've never had the pleasure myself. Mom looks right in the camera and flashes a saucy grin. She makes me laugh. I know that part of the video is going to look bouncy. You have to keep your eyes on the end, she says. I've had other jobs here. I was a greeter for several years. Before that, I potted seedlings in the facilities greenhouse. I've done plenty of shifts in the laundry, and when I first got here, I napkins around sporks in the kitchen. I still do mess duty, just like everyone else. That means you take a turn cleaning up after meals. Okay, great. I set the camera down and pick up my notebook. It's a little strange to sit across from Mom. Even stranger to tell her, begin when you're ready. It's your story. There's a stretch of silence. I don't breathe. My pencil is ready. I feel Mom switch tone, but she speaks to me. Well, you know what I'm in for, she says. I know what you told me. You're in Blue River for 2 reasons. Because you told lies and because your actions contributed to a death. I know you got manslaughter, same as Big Ed had said. And you know what it means, Mom says. Yeah, it means you didn't mean to kill, but you made a mistake that caused somebody's death. Yep, I sure did. Who was it, Mom? My father, she says. I feel my eyebrows hitch upwards. My fingers are weak around the pencil now. Her father would be my grandfather. I had never heard this before. I lean forward. My mom looks past me, but just to the back of my chair, not way off like Big Ed did. I grew up in a household that didn't have a lot of warmth, her mom said. My mom said, her mouth twisted just a little. Not that I ever wished any of my parents bad. I just wished they loved me or would love me differently than they did. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't plan me. I happen to know that an unexpected baby can bring incomparable joy. I smile, but I keep my pencil moving, scratching down the words. But at my house, it was just the three of us. And it's weird, but I felt more managed than loved. For a long time, I did my best at all the things that seemed to matter to them. Luis, I need you to make good choices. Got good grades, great grades actually, and good thing because there was no room for flubbing up under that roof. She rolls her eyes. You get no love for that. I worked hard at school and I competed hard on the swim team. I had to win so I wouldn't have to see them turn their backs on me at the end of the race. By the time I graduated high school, I had won a nice college scholarship, and I think we were all looking forward to having me out of their house. Mom smiles, actually. Ashlyn and Zahedi, it is not your chit-chat time. And we were all looking forward to having me out of their house. Mom smiles, just a little. They had a rule, actually, out at 18. So one summer night, we sat down to talk over some of my plans for the fall. I had changed those plans somewhat, and I was feeling assertive because it was my life and my scholarship. That didn't go over well. They were shouting, and my parents were getting harder to talk to, angry and exasperated. I was probably being a snot. I don't know. Mom sighs. But things got ugly. Finally, I'd had enough of the shouting, so I picked up to leave. And that's when my father gasped and clutched his chest. I'll never forget it. He looked at my mother and said, Vivian, I'm in so much pain, I think I'm going to die. We had to get him to the hospital. I was the one standing with the keys in my hand. We got my father into the back seat. Mom got in with him and we took off. I sat the pencil down and wiggled my fingers. I picked up the camera, watching Mom's video. Everyone thinks driving will be easy out in the straight along. We sped along. My father got silent, but my mother kept calling into the front of the car, hollering that we weren't going fast enough. Bad weather moved in, a good old Nebraska hailstorm. I couldn't see. Mom shakes her head. I was trying so hard to help. She lowers her head and bites her lip. I made an awful mistake at an intersection, and that was it. Her voice climbs up. We crashed. The camera is off. I look at Mom, at her arms and her legs and her head when she's tucking her fingers into her hair. I almost ask her, was she hurt all those years ago? But she squints and picks up her story again. The rest is kind of a messed up blur, Perry. Flashing lights and stopped trucks, feet slipping over hailstones and crushing them. I could see my parents in the back seat, neither one conscious. Troy and Luis, do not make me ask you again. Mom's eyes water up. I tried to open the back doors, but they were crumpled in. I couldn't budge them. Couldn't get into the back seat. Mom wiped her eyes on her fingertips. I remember that the police were kind. I sheltered in a blanket at the scene for what seemed like forever. A tow truck came. Mom shakes her head like she was trying to recall. The police put me in a cruiser. We followed the ambulance and both my parents inside to the hospital. While the nurses looked over me for injuries, I kept asking about my parents. Mom waited to beat. Finally, I learned that my father had died. My mother had a head injury. something that was taking a lot of stitches. I asked to see her, but the nurse just ducked her chin and told me my mother was unavailable. A sad truth, Mom says. She cleared her throat. When the police asked, I told them yes, I was driving. Then they said there was an obvious odor of alcohol at the scene. Mom shakes her head. She stares off for a few seconds. The next hours were exhausting and confusing. The questions, the pressures, I didn't know what to say. I felt like I dropped into somebody else's nightmare. They asked again and again, and I told them I was driving. And then the next thing I know, I was being arrested. I was so scared. I kept asking for my mother, and I was told she would not come. At some point, I realized that was her choice. Thank you. I was alone and terrified. Bad advice was everywhere, but I didn't know enough to see that. Eventually, I pled guilty. But then because my father died in the accident, there was the manslaughter charge too. Mom cocks her head. Didn't see that coming. But I had done what I'd done, and I confessed, and a confession is a conviction. We say it together though my own lips felt numb. Mom is quiet, and I picked up the camera again. Oddly, I say, she says, I don't consider that my Blue River story. That part would be about our named degree in social work from the inside and my work here. But I think the part you wanted to know is what got me in, and I don't blame you. Being incarcerated is not something I would have chosen, but I found a new beginning here. I found out that life still goes forward even when you're on the inside. I think Mom is finished, but then she adds something. I thought my sentencing was ferocious. I felt I'd been made an example of, but I still have no real regrets about the confession. Not until I found out about you, Perry. When I realized that I'd compromised two people's futures, well, you bet I was sorry. I had the new biggest fear in the world, and that was being separated from you. We made it a lot of years before that happened, Mom said. She looks up at me and nods. Coming here was a patch of good inside a blurry patch of bad. All right. So that was chapter 43. The next chapter 44 is going to be told by Jessica again. So we're going to see how she feels about telling her story to Perry.